Tim Kirby Russia hot takes. The Russians are attacking the Ukrainian electric grid every day en masse, but not for the reason you might think. Now, obviously, some of you guys are going to say or possibly comment right now, well, Tim, I mean, it's obvious. It's a war. You attack the other side's infrastructure. That's kind of the part of the whole war thing. And I understand that. And that's part of the reason why the Russians have been attacking the Ukrainian electric grid very intensely. But there's another reason. Now, this is sort of my speculation, but if we think back, what has been the main challenge of the special military operation from the standpoint of the Russians? Well, first off, they're a bit undermanned. But more so than anything, it's the fact that they've had to be very careful to avoid civilian casualties, whereas the Ukrainian side hasn't. We have to remember that ideologically, the Ukrainian neo-Nazis see the Russian speakers of the Donbass region as vermin, as non-citizens, as pretty much non-humans, that their deaths essentially would be a plus to a future Ukraine. The less of the sort of Untermenschen that are in Ukraine, the better they see things. So essentially, the Russians have to very accurately and carefully fight this war to avoid civilian casualties, whereas the Ukrainian neo-Nazis can just kind of kill whoever they want. That is a dark but huge advantage. So obviously all of us who are alive today are very dependent on electricity, and if electricity were to go off, say, permanently, well, what can we do about that? We'd be essentially forced to kind of go back to the Stone Ages and burn stuff to survive till hopefully they turn it back on, or we'd be forced to leave. And I think that might be the ultimate Russian strategy. Whether the locals are pro-Russian or anti-Russian, the main thing is that when the electricity's turned off for long enough, every able-bodied person is going to have to leave. And as soon as the field of battle starts to become a lot more empty of civilians, that starts to get rid of that advantage that Kiev has had since the very beginning of this war. So remember, now it's winter, and without electricity and without heating, it is unbearable to live in the Ukraine. Although, to an extent, it was kind of unbearable to live there over the last 30 years. But that's a side point. But the main thing is that everyone is being forced to leave. And with a nice empty open field in front of them, the Russians are going to be able to finally be free to act in a military, logical, and effective sense, rather than in a politically careful, humane sense. So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.